Hello, humans. This is Steven Stull, and you are watching The Hold Up, a member of the Without Your Head podcast network. This is the podcast where I interview a friend of mine about a movie that they remember loving but haven't seen for at least 10 years. We have two conversations. First, we talk about what they remember. Then, we split up and watch the movie, and we get back together and talk about how well it holds up. This week, I'm talking to my friend Sergio Pinheiro about Jacob's Ladder from 1990. I'll let you get right into it, but I just want to mention real fast at the end of our conversation, we mentioned two things. One of them is Midjourney, which is an AI image generation software thing. At the time, I said you needed an invitation or a wait list, but things have changed, and that is in open beta right now. And if you are I don't know, inclined toward experimenting with art at all, please jump on Midjourney. It's a lot of fun, a lot of weird stuff happening there. And I promise I have no connection to them whatsoever except as a user. But it is weird, and I think everybody should play around with it. The other thing is the debacle, the Bizarroland film debacle. It's a 72-hour film challenge that I run, and you've missed it this year. But if you are interested in weird movies, keep an eye out for the debacle. It'll be happening next June. Also, the Bizarroland Film Festival will be happening pretty soon in December, so keep an eye out on that, even though we don't mention it at all. Anyway, please enjoy this talk. I already started the recording. I usually like to let things kind of warm up a minute, but it's always very awkward to say, "Hey, now
Okay.
seems like a good time to start the recording."
Yeah. No worries.
so,
I was actually checking out my background because I have like, so do I need to put
do I need to
anything
cover
there? It looks
anything?
very, yeah. Do I need to put away the sex toys?
I think I think I got enough junk in my background to cover us both. That's not where that
And
microphone
also,
is.
does this look annoying? Like I look like my eyes are glowing. Probably better if I just do
That's
that.
you.
It's when I'm working. It's like these don't even have a prescription. It's just like
Yeah.
those blue blocker
Oh,
things.
right. Like eye strain to help with eye strain.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, I should be wearing glasses right now. I have a prescription. It's very like it's a weak prescription. The eye is not terribly bad. In fact, I couldn't even get contacts because
They don't make them for
the
that.
well, like the right eye needs just a tiny little bit. Or, I mean, the left eye needs a tiny little bit, and the right eye just doesn't need anything. So they're
Yeah.
like, it's not working. But anyway, my point is, I got these glasses, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna stop being a big baby. I'm gonna wear my glasses the way the doctor wants me to, and I wear them. And for 3 days, I wear them, and I end up with this fucking bloody hole on the side of my
Really?
nose.
Oh no.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just
Is
have
it?
like
Do you need to put like a pad there on the?
yeah. Is that something like I'm kind of new to this whole glasses thing?
Oh, dude, me too. Look, you
Yeah,
know what happened? The week I turned 40, I was shooting something.
yeah.
And I'm not even kidding you. I have the camera here and there's the LCD screen, and I show up and I go like this and I go, shit. And it was like that week. And it never happened before. And now it's like it gets a little further away every year.
Yeah.
I'm like, son of a bitch. So I have
Well, I
reading
mean,
glasses. So I had to buy
yeah.
cool looking reading glasses because I don't want to be like on set with like a pair of 6.99 CVS readers, you know.
I mean, how important is like seeing stuff to making a movie anyway, though? Like,
Right. You know, we can
it's not
fix that
just.
in post, right? Ink blur. Isn't that a thing?
Oh God, I made a joke post one time, and it upset me to make it, but I made this joke post about just locking the camera down and shooting in like uh, uh, 100K or yeah, and then like just doing all your editing in post. And I had a couple friends message me and say like, okay, this legitimately gave me panic attacks. And then one friend was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." Like, no, stop, no, don't do that.
Yeah, that's, I don't know how many K is enough.
Yeah, I mean,
How many K do we need?
right. I'm looking at I don't know. I'm looking at old movies. My friends make fun of me because or I have a couple friends make fun of me because I still have so many DVDs. They're like, my eyes will literally bleed if I watch 480p, and it's fine,
Yeah.
man. It's fine. But we're rewatching Futurama again on this new big screen TV we bought, and we're still in the early seasons, the first couple seasons, and like it's weird. I can really see a lot of artifacts and stuff now that I
Mhm.
don't think I saw before. And I don't want to be bothered by this. Like that sounds stupid. I don't worry about it. But then again, I did just spend, 300 some odd dollars on 4Ks and Blu-rays from Vinegar Syndrome for
There you go.
movies that were like shot on VHS, like literally on
Yeah,
VHS the first time
yeah.
around. I just paid for Blu-ray upreses of them, and I'm wondering what is wrong with me.
No, I think Blu-ray is about the what it's much as you need. Like
Hmm.
maybe skip the 4K UHD if they
Yeah,
make
yeah.
one, you know? And like, yeah, because there are some movies like Session 9.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
It
was like
doesn't need
prosumers. That
to
was like
be.
3 CCDs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like it was on either an XL1 or a
Hmm.
Panasonic VX1.
XL1. The
Yeah.
XL1, that was the camera I used to fantasize about so much. I remember
Yeah.
28 Days Later came out,
Hmm.
and I knew they shot it on the XL1, and in my head, because I was dumb and young, I thought shooting on the XL1 meant that it was like a very small budget indie run and gun production.
Yeah.
And then I look at behind the scenes footage and stuff, and they still got the full size truck cranes and shit.
Yeah.
It's just they're
Yeah.
using the
And in
little
fact, they probably
cameras.
needed more because wasn't the latitude on that chip like it was
It
terrible.
was pretty rough. Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a look now. I'm glad. I think there's this thing that happens where somebody will do something specific to their movie to give it a very specific look, and then other people will just copy it badly for years and years on end. I think that's what uh, "Oh brother, where art thou? Oh brother, where art thou?" cursed us.
Okay.
Because they deliberately wanted a very like specific look to the image with that like brown washout and desaturation
Yeah.
stuff, and now, oh my God, I just see it constantly. People shooting log all the time, and then just throw one LUT over the end and say, "All right, we're done." It's
Yeah.
the whole thing's green now. It's a sci-fi movie, so it's got to be green. It's a
Right. Yeah. Well, but what people didn't realize is that they did so much stuff in that movie. Like I
Mhm.
saw before and after shots where like that when the especially like that like there's that shot of it's
It's
like
a wide
high
like out
angle
exterior.
looking down on that radio station before they
Yeah.
go in to record,
Right.
right?
Right.
All of that, it's like that big, yeah, it's got that golden brown dust bowl thing. All that dry grass was green,
Yeah.
and they color corrected just the grass
Yeah.
to be brown, which was awesome. Like straw color. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great look for that. We were grousing about this. I was talking with another filmmaker last night, and I guess I won't name them so that nobody can do any detective work to figure out what we're talking about. But they just worked on a movie where um, the director like anyway, whatever. The director I'm trying to be circumspect. Maybe I shouldn't tell the story. Anyway, shouldn't tell the story. Anyway, the DP is like, okay, shoot with these settings and then apply this LUT afterward. And the director's like, okay, fine. And then just shot in log and is now trying to color correct in post. And for the record, anybody listening, shooting in log and color correcting in post can be super powerful
Hmm.
if you're a colorist. Like if you know what you're doing, it can, and you're willing to spend a lot of time on it, it can be really gorgeous that way. But
But also, like putting a LUT on it is just one step, right?
mhm.
Like there's a lot of other things that you probably can and should do to the picture even after you apply
Mhm.
it, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and so, yeah, like I've played with it a little bit. I
yeah,
oftentimes I think I end up um, correcting it myself, but
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
everything of yours I've seen has just the most gorgeous color. Like you love
Oh,
color.
thanks.
It's beautiful, and I'm curious about that. Like, do you do for like Forever and um I saw some like music video kind of stuff that you did. Do you always like do you handle your own color manually?
For the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the
My
forever
voice
one,
just cracked because I'm going through puberty again.
yeah. For the most, like I'm trying to remember where. So yeah, with forever, that was totally. that was early. Like when we did that, that was before even like LUTs were a thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I had to color correct all, and that was also like on a 5D that we shot that on. So
Oh,
like it just, there was no log.
right, right, right.
And so that one had to be adjusted like every shot. It was like the traditional one. We had to go and be
Right,
like,
right.
okay, all these shots are going to be this way, and then all these shots are going to be this way, and like had to adjust them all by hand as we went. So,
That sounds
uh,
like fun.
yeah,
I mean, I say that, but it was fun doing that
I
kind of
kind of
stuff,
like it.
Yeah.
I do. I kind of like it. Because it's just another thing where like it's, you sometimes it like I've seen so many times where like you're watching something, you're like, yeah, this is good, I think this is working well, and then when you apply the color to it, you're like, oh, now it's really working well.
Yeah, yeah.
It just it's amazing what a subtle change can do to it. And actually did something, I don't think you would have seen this version, but if there's a new for with Forever, there was this AI upscaling
Oh yeah.
software that I ended up getting because again, it was shot on a 5D, so it was done at 1080. And I got this like the one time I think Facebook ad actually worked out for me, which like that's a hit rate of like point zero zero
Seriously.
zero zero one. And so good job, Facebook, I guess. Uh, and it was this AI upscaler, and I got the trial for it, and it was like a week, and I fed through one shot in Forever to upscale it to 4K,
Mhm.
and it worked amazingly. And I was like, oh
Oh
my
yeah.
God. Except it took like 2 hours for that one shot to do. And then all of a sudden
Yeah.
I started crunching numbers, and I'm like, I have a week on this free trial. And I literally ate up that whole week rendering 4K upscales of Forever in that software and just barely made it.
Man, you just reminded me. Like, uh, by the way, all my Facebook ads these days are either for religious counseling or like prepper meal kits, like
Seen that.
7-year meal kits and
Yeah.
stuff. I'm getting a lot of those
I'm
things.
getting those in the email. I don't know what I did, but I suddenly started getting those in email form.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, if you don't know better and you get some of these emails that I've gotten, I'd be terrified
Yeah, yeah.
of like walking outside.
Yeah.
I look at
They
these
want
and
you to be so scared about everything.
I know, I look at these and I know it's 100% deep fried ass ham. I know it. But I read it and I'm just like, if I didn't know that,
Yeah.
I'd be terrified because they're like talking about. I mean, there was ones that was like basically insinuating you should be walking outside with a bulletproof vest
Yeah.
every day, and here's the place where you can buy one. And it was
Yeah.
like, wow, man, like that's crazy.
It's, the fear and outrage drive I don't know. I'm going to conservatively say 95% of the $1 trillion social media advertising business. It's just fear and outrage. Those are the things that get all the shares. Those are the things that get all the
Yeah,
comments and the activity. And,
yeah,
you know, I get it, right? Like it's a lot of work mentally to be able to, because you're getting fed it all the time on social media, on your email, on television, on everything you do. You're getting constantly fed this barrage of bullshit that is specifically engineered to make you angry and scared,
yeah,
and expending the mental energy to filter through it all. It's exhausting. God,
yep.
I don't know how we do it, and I don't know how much longer we can do it.
Yeah, it's not sustainable for sure.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm getting tired,
Yeah, for sure. It's been a
especially in the last couple
Oh
weeks.
my God,
I'm
dude. I
very
don't.
tired.
Oh, yeah. It's been a rough week to be in America, I think. And the tragedy is that it's been a rough week because of things that are now going to have decades long ramifications on all of
Uh-huh.
us.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
ugly.
Not to
I
derail the
No,
conversation.
no, no, no.
you know.
Please, we're on a on a downward spiral right now. I'm sure, like
Uh,
on the downward trajectory in this conversation. So maybe we should brighten it up a little. Oh,
yeah,
um, you reminded me of something earlier. Shit, and I totally blanked on it. The AI. Oh yeah, AI stuff. So I got into the Midjourney
yeah,
beta,
yeah.
and that's a lot. That's fascinating to me.
Hmm.
I'm I don't know. Have you done? Were you in? You were in one of them, right? You
I
were doing
used
some
that,
stuff.
that Dolly Mini
Okay,
that
the Dolly
was
Minute. Yeah,
sweeping around. Yeah, like
yeah,
I messed around with that a lot. Actually, I
yeah.
spent way too much time messing around with that thing. And I've got some really good ones that I haven't posted yet that I do want to post. But I ended up
Mhm.
getting on the wait list for the full version,
Yeah,
which looks insane.
yeah.
Yeah,
Is it for Dolly 2 that
yeah,
you're? Yeah, yeah. So I see. I'm in the. I'm almost certain I'm gonna sign up for the subscription to Midjourney because it's like you can get a basic subscription at the moment pretty cheap, and
okay,
I'm probably gonna do it. But at the moment, I'm still in the free plan, and you have like 25 minutes of GPU time. Period.
okay,
It never refreshes until you
okay,
subscribe, right?
yeah,
And so like I'm sitting in the newbie channels on Midjourney, and these people are doing like in the newbie channels, they're doing refinements on their images over and over and over and doing different variations and stuff. And I'm just like watching, oh, there's 1 minute of your GPU time. Oh, there's another minute of your GPU time. Like,
yeah.
are you guys actually paid subscribers just slumming it in the newbie channel, or are you just burning through your shit because you want to get one perfect image done?
Hey, it's if you end up with that one perfect image, or and you love it,
Yeah,
great.
it
You
was
know,
worth the. I told them, so they have at the moment anyway. I don't know what it's gonna be like by the time anybody hears this, but at the moment they have a little questionnaire you fill out to get on the wait list, and the last question is, tell us about yourself. Why should we give you a slot in the beta? And I answered that question. I was like, honestly, you should probably give it to somebody else. I'm just fucking around. But then 3 days later, I got the email and I was like, hey, awesome. This rules.
nice. Yeah, we didn't for the Dolly. They didn't even ask. It was just like enter your email,
Yeah.
and then like cool, you're on the wait list. So who knows what that means or how long it is? And wish they'd tell you. Be like,
Yeah.
hey, you're one of like 5 million. Be like, all right, great. I'll see you next year. Yeah.
Are-
Oh, but the actually real just to bring it real quick back,
oh yeah, sure.
the whole point, the thing about upscaling that on
Oh
4K
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
forever is that when I was done,
Hmm.
weirdly enough, it actually kind of like weirdly like applied a very thin, almost log like flattening to the image.
Oh yeah.
I realized I could go back in and actually there were a few shots and sequences that I wasn't always happy with where the color was. Like blues sort of started shifting to like purple a little bit. And I was like, I really could actually go back in. And I ended up doing a whole new color pass on forever on top of the original one,
Oh wow.
and sort of tweaked some of the colors back to like where I really was happy with it.
So if you were only going to have one version exist in the universe now, would it be the one that you had before you did the upscale, color wise, or would it
Yeah.
be the
Oh,
one
it's
that
the new one. No,
the
it's
new
the
one?
new
Yeah,
one. Yeah, for
you happy
sure.
with it? That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's the only one that I've kept because now it's like a 4K
Yeah,
master, like total ProRes, thing. And actually I realized that it's actually super helpful as like part of a production pipeline because
oh yeah,
I did, and I think I sent you some, you probably saw some of the images, that experimental video that I did,
yeah,
which
yeah.
I submitted. And I ended up having footage that was 1080,
Hmm.
2K, and then 4 and 6K.
Oh wow.
And so what I did is I edited to a 2K, like kind of split all the differences and went to the middle and
Yeah,
edited for 2K. And then when I was done, I pulled I just like hid all the text and
hmm.
then fed that entire 2K as a ProRes through the
And the
upscaler
upscaler. Yeah,
and made a 4K image. So all that 1080 got brought up. The
yeah.
4K stuff just kind of stayed the same, but everything else below that just got brought up to 4.
That's cool. So
And
you
that,
the one success story of Facebook advertising.
yeah. and that it probably won't be the only for a while.
I wonder sometimes, like, what does Facebook know about me that I don't know? I have to assume that they just got it wrong, right? Like they just get me wrong all the time.
Well,
But
you click on like the wrong ad,
yeah,
and like it just is like, oh, that's what you are now. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Oh God, I YouTube is messing with me because I used to have every time they update the privacy settings on YouTube, I have to go back and dig out the one that says stop my history, right? Stop recording my history
Okay.
because I got it. I heard a snippet on a IG reel or something like that. So I was like, hey, I want to hear this song right now. So I went and I looked up this song and listened to it, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And then since then, every single time I look at YouTube, I get a different rendition of that song, that exact same song, just other people singing it or like remixes of it. And I'm like, okay, Jesus, man, it was one song. I just
I
wanted to hear the
know.
leave me alone. This isn't who I am. And
Yeah.
a lot of time, like if I'm on my phone, it is super easy to accidentally click on an ad. And
Yep.
then I'm like, oh crap, I'm looking at Serta mattresses now or something like that. And then
Yep.
that just one tiny data point, the algorithm goes nuts. And now I'm getting 900 more mattress ads. Oh, he loves mattresses. Show him some mattresses. No, I don't give
Yeah.
a shit about mattresses. What are you doing?
Yep. Or I look up something like my wife's like, oh, what's that? I might be like, oh, you might be interested in this. And they're like,
Hmm.
great, now you like this. Like, I don't. She
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, on Amazon, I used to be really stringent about going back through and after every single purchase going in and saying, "Don't use this for recommendations."
Yeah, yeah.
Jen needed some socks, and so now I get women's athletic wear popping up constantly in my Amazon suggestions. I'm like, no, I just needed one
I
pair
mean,
of
have you
socks.
tried? I heard Lululemon's really nice.
Yeah, didn't they make a movie about that recently? Yeah, how great
They
it
did?
is. I don't know. There was a doc, right? I haven't seen it
I
yet.
don't know. Is there?
Yeah, there's a doc about
Is,
I mean it's I don't know. All these MLMs are just they're like they're really culty. And that
is Lululemon an MLM?
isn't that the one and the one I'm thinking of where it's like athletic wear, but you're supposed to try to sell it to other people. I thought it was. I
Oh, I
I
don't
might be
know.
completely talking about it in my ass right now.
No, I didn't. If it is, it could be. I didn't, and I
Hmm.
don't think I knew. But yeah, I know they have stores and
Yeah, yeah.
stuff, but I didn't know about that part of it. If that's what it is,
Well, I might be completely wrong. I'll have
maybe
to.
it's a different athletic wear.
Yeah. My extended family used to be, and they probably still are. I just haven't talked to them in 20 years. But my extended family were up in the panhandle of Florida. They were all like super into Amway,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
this was a long time ago. And so I feel like I was already kind of primed to see the scary culty MLMs pop up because it seems like there's a rash of them right now, or at least over the last 10-ish years or so, there's been a bunch. But I
yeah.
feel kind of, I feel sort of uh, fortunate to have been exposed to it 20 years ago when it was just Amway,
Yeah.
but I haven't fallen into any of it this time around.
Yeah, I remember that from like I was like in the '80s, right? They were really big
Hmm.
then. Did they? They may have existed even before that, probably. But
Yeah, so we had a lot of VHS tapes when I was young, just full of movies that we copied off the TV or whatever.
yeah.
And one of them was this movie called Animal Olympics, which was an animated cartoon where it's animals doing the Olympics, and it's a comedy, and it's got
Okay.
like, I haven't seen it in
I
probably
feel like
30 years now.
I feel like that's familiar. I feel like I may have heard
Yeah.
that. I
I
may have even seen it. I wouldn't be surprised.
I looked it up on IMDb kind of recently, and I was suddenly shocked at how many like famous people did voices for it because I didn't know. I was like 9 years old, watching
Yeah,
this thing. It's like, oh,
yeah.
Billy Crystal. Well, I know who that is now. Uh, but the tape itself, since it was, we'd copied onto this tape, the tape itself had a label on it that said Herbalife.
Oh yeah.
And I had, for my whole childhood, I had no idea what it was. And then, like in adulthood, I was like, wait a minute, what's Herbalife? I just saw a car drive by with a Herbalife bumper sticker. So I Googled it and I was like, oh, well, I guess my parents were into this at some point.
Yeah.
So
Oh
this
yeah.
whole scheme's been going on forever, I guess.
Yeah, no, yeah. That I mean, or they just send out those tapes to everyone and anyone, and
Right,
it's like
right, right.
that's like the first version of spam emails, right? It's
Yeah,
just giving
yeah.
tapes to everybody.
My mom worked in a bunch of offices. Like she worked at she was a office manager for a bunch of different places when I was a kid, and they used to have, you know, everybody talks now about how many of these supposed memes are actually just those old email forwards from the early 2000s.
Yeah,
You go back even farther, and people used to print this stuff because I
yeah.
remember seeing the exact kind of crap, the same stories and the dumb jokes pinned up on the offices that my mom worked in. I'd go and, you know, somebody collected them all, like collected like a 50 of them into a book one time and like printed off on people's printers and shared it around. And it's just all these, you know, these dumb jokes that you would call memes these days. Like I
Yeah.
remember a guy, a little clip art of a guy in a suit, and it says, uh, getting anything done around here is like wetting yourself in a dark suit. You get a warm feeling and no one else notices.
I love that.
So yeah, it's better than some of the shit that I see pop up in my feed right now.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, here's a quick question for you.
Yeah, fire away.
Tell me, because I like to ask this,
Hmm.
and of myself even sometimes, and I feel like the answer changes. Maybe it used to be yearly, and now maybe it's weekly.
Yeah.
Uh, do you think if you take the internet in its totality, so websites, social media, everything, is it doing more harm than good, or more good than harm?
Oh man. Yeah, that's tough. Um I think if we look at the internet as a whole, I think it probably, and I'm just talking totally out of my ass right now, like I don't,
Sure.
you know, but
I'm not
I,
asking for an expert opinion. I'm
yeah,
asking for yours.
hammer out a quick dissertation, do some research, and whatever. Now, I think if we look at the internet as a whole right now, it breaks just above the middle mark onto the positive side, I think.
Okay.
But I think if we look specifically at social media, I think it's very much negative. I think it's the social media. Now, it's like, do you remember you're I think we're close to we're similar ages, right? Like I'm 44 this year. We're
Yeah,
in the
we're
neighborhood.
about the
Okay.
same. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
45. Yeah.
45. I remember when I was like in the 90s, when I in the mid 90s I got my first email address, you know. We were so hopeful. We had this idea because we're all nerds. We
Yeah.
believed that the internet was going to put an end to fallacy, right? To myth. We thought that everybody was going to have complete
Mm.
access to all the all the correct information. There would be no questions anymore, and everybody would end up smarter. That didn't happen, clearly.
No, did
But
not.
there's a writer I, I adore, and he says that, you know, in a very unscientific observation, it takes a while for societies to figure out every new thing they create, right? Like like when we created cocaine in America, it was like throw it everywhere, you know, it's in your soda, it's in
Yeah.
your, give it to your kids when they're being fussy, you know. uh
Wait, they gave it to their kids when they were being fussy and they thought it would calm them down?
I think maybe I'm mixing it
Or
up with
does
like
like your child
laudanum and
come to
stuff,
you?
right?
Does your child come to you and been like, Dad, I've been thinking about this theory and I need about an hour and a half of your time? I can imagine it makes them more focused, but they're gonna be
To
like,
chill them out. Yeah, it's probably not a bedtime medicine, right?
yeah,
But it takes, so this writer's saying social media is one of those things where right now we're basically in, even still, even in 2022, we're still kind of in the Wild West phase, right, of social media.
okay,
I see the potential for social media to be a very good thing, right? Like that's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be, you know, because there's a lot of people, and you know, um, I'm a weirdo, and I always had trouble connecting with people, but it was never cripplingly that so, right? But there are people in there's some young trans kid in rural Alabama right now who only has friends who understand him because of the internet and social media, right?
yeah,
And I appreciate that, and I want more of that. And I think social media can achieve that if it survives the next 10 years. It's
If we
if we
survive.
survive, right.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
I feel like the internet and the servers will run sending
Hmm.
spam emails and things for
Yes.
way years and years longer after we're
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. They don't like they all of it's so automated, all the algorithms and things. It's like,
Yeah,
so I think right now we're at this very dangerous juncture of technology and capitalism. And I think it is going to take some concerted effort at threading the needle to keep at least American society from collapsing into bloody chaos.
yeah. I mean, I feel like we've gotten lucky in many respects with other things that could have been very detrimental to society
Yeah,
or just American. I'll speak just about American stuff.
yeah.
And I tried to give a good example, but I think we've been lucky in that certain things were held on to or done in a more benevolent way
Hmm.
than opportunistic way. Uh, but I feel like social media was not it.
Right, right.
Like it may have started a bit more. It definitely started more like community and like positive, like art. Even like you look at MySpace, hey, by the time we were all leaving MySpace, everyone was complaining about MySpace. Like,
Right, right.
let's not be, we pine for those days just because it's so much worse now.
Right,
But
right. But that
back
doesn't
in the
mean they were
day,
great. Yeah.
no, I mean, I remember clicking on a web page and then like it would cause your computer to like crash because someone like installed something in it that like wrecked your hard drive or
Do
whatever.
you remember the comic cursors? Like you'd go to somebody's MySpace and your cursor would turn into a little fairy sprinkling
Yeah.
dust all around the screen. God, that was obnoxious.
Yeah, but but at least with that, it's like then there were ones that were like there was like actual malicious code
Right,
in
right,
the
right.
HTML, and so like yeah, so that was obviously, but that was being done by the community.
Right, right.
That wasn't
It wasn't
like
nefariousness from the structure itself. Yeah.
yeah, what was his name? Not Jack. What's his name?
Tom.
Tom from MySpace. Yeah, it was like, he wasn't the one putting those in the thing. He left a door open for other people to
Hmm.
exploit. But, that's different from I think where like Facebook is now, where it's like mass panic and misinformation is now basically might as well be part of the like
Yeah,
mission statement,
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, you look at the Facebook papers. There is unending evidence that Facebook, as a company, knows how it's being abused
Yeah.
and refuses to act on it. I read a long piece about this. I don't remember where it was, the New Yorker or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't New Yorker, but I read a long piece about how many of the engineers, all the people working at Facebook, who are super conflicted because they see the danger and they keep informing their superiors in the organization about the danger, and the superiors, the word keeps coming down from Zuckerberg, oh, we're not changing that. And they struggle, and I don't know what to tell them. I honestly don't know what to tell them, but like they struggle every day with, oh, should I quit or should I continue to be a part of this and try to change it? And it seems like the biggest rationale, one of the things that I read that was so surprising to me, is that Facebook is like, and has been for a while, desperately struggling to get qualified software engineers into the organization. And so right now there are, I don't know how many, but there are good-minded people inside the organization struggling against the tide to try to make it good. And their understanding is that if they leave, they might not get replaced with people with as noble a set of goals as they have, right?
I mean that, yeah, and that's, I guess I should preface what I said. Like, not
Mhm.
everybody that works at Facebook
No,
is
no, no, no.
obviously an evil, like mastermind. There are, and you're right.
Just
There's
the
people that,
leadership.
yeah, yeah. There's lots of people there, and that actually makes me very like that. That's a nice thing to hear, that there are
Mhm.
like people who are like more afraid of leaving just because they're worried about who or what's going to replace them.
Right, right.
Could be a step down.
Yeah.
You know, that's nice. Like it, and yeah, like, and I get the idea of working at a place that ultimately like you don't agree with what they're doing necessarily, but a you have to have a job, and you
Right,
have to,
right.
pay your bills.
Yeah.
And yes, someone could say, well, just leave. Um, but that's not always an easy thing to do.
No, no.
Um, and I get that. I appreciate the noble gesture of at least being like, well, let me see what I can do to either like prevent things from getting worse, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Try to
actually
make it
making it
better.
better. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Personally, I don't know how many times I could beat my head on the wall trying to convince my bosses this is a danger and we need to stop it, and seeing them do nothing about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that
But
is
then
the
again,
thing.
I still live in America.
Yeah. And it's ultimately like nothing will change in any significant way because the people at the very top don't want it to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think and I was one of them for a long time. I think people don't understand the the structure of what a corporation is. I think corporation makes a good an easy term to oversimplify. What I don't think people understand, when they find out. I have a friend who is terminally optimistic. She really believes everybody is a good person with good goals, and I don't know. I think she's either faking it or it's some kind of coping mechanism for whatever demons she has in her head. But she always seems so distraught when she finds out that some company has been, oh, Disney gives a bunch of money to Ron DeSantis,
Yeah.
and she gets very upset about that. And I think a lot of people don't realize that corporations are, they expect them to do good and not be shitty like their people. But
Yeah.
the truth is, they almost have a legal obligation to be shitty, because their primary goal, all of them, Facebook acts like it exists to give you a service to connect with your friends, but the primary goal of every single corporation is to improve shareholder value, right?
Yeah. What's to make money?
So yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah.
this is one of the things I get. I go back and forth on, like Target with all the Pride merchandise. You know, on the one hand, they're not putting out Pride merchandise because they're just led by good people. It's not a good people supporting the queer community. What they have is they have a bunch of bean counters who have said, "Listen, we think we can make more money if we take this stance."
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends, and I do not blame them, a lot of my friends are very cynical about that and say, this is corporate rainbow washing or whatever, and you shouldn't participate in it. And I appreciate their position, and I don't try to talk them out of it. But the way I try to look at it is, okay, if Target's money people have said we can make more money adopting this stance, then that means it's a more popular stance now than it used to be, right?
Yeah.
So that's the good I try to find in it.
And also I guess it's like, I think those two things can be true. I think you can
Mhm,
at one time be like, oh, isn't it nice that Target is like actually embracing this
mhm,
in their stores, and like giving people the opportunity to buy something that's going to allow them to speak their truth,
mhm.
But you can also be annoyed at the fact that they're like, well, this is just a way to make money.
Right, right.
Those two things can be true. What does it make Target at the end of the day? I don't know.
It's
It's
just
again, yeah.
as
But
complicated a thing as any person, right?
yeah, but I'll tell you, the person working at Target who may be trans, or maybe, or have not sure about where they are,
Mhm.
that person working at Target if they see that and it makes them in some way or another feel better at the
Yeah.
fact that like there's some incremental progress happening, like that's cool. Or not even the worker, but the person walking in
Just
as
a
a customer.
shopper coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, that comes in and like is like, wow, there's something here for me
Mhm.
at this major corporation that is like clearly putting their backing behind this. Like, if it helps them, it's better than it not being there.
Right, right. Exactly. I have read the position or I've read the claim, and I hope it's true. It's hard to believe, as the days go by, but I really hope it's true that, like, I feel like we're seeing more virulent opposition to something like gay rights than we used to.
But we
And
absolutely similar. Yeah.
What I've read is that it's because the opposition is shrinking, and as that population of homophobes shrinks, they become angrier and louder.
Yeah.
And I want to believe that. I really do.
Well,
It's
I mean,
just,
the demographics do
yeah,
line up with that. And I think it's, yeah, because it's shrinking, but it's also, like they're, of course that, and I've been talking about it, maybe this is just aspirational,
mm-hmm.
but talking about how this hopefully will ultimately lead to a split in conservatives where they will be
Yeah,
fighting amongst each other, because half don't want to be crazy and the other half are crazy.
yeah,
and and at the same time, like you kind of, people are ringing the bell, the death bell of the Republican Party or whatever, but you're at your most dangerous when you're
cornered and alone.
cornered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's the part that I worry about,
right.
because as is clear right now, as you're watching, in the last whatever months to like how many
Oh my
years, is
God.
that people are like, well, how can, they're shocked at the fact that they're not following the rules, or they're like going around the norms, and like they're
Yeah,
not adhering to law.
yeah,
It's like, well, if you were threatened with your own existence as a party, not, and then you somehow tie that in with your existence ideologically, your existence existentially,
yeah, yeah.
wouldn't you break
Stoop
the
to
law
any.
to do
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
And the worst thing
That's,
is, like, like they talk about, like, like, we don't want to be, you will not replace us, right? The replacement theory. I'm
ugh,
like,
yeah.
guys, if you keep going outside and being violent and being angry and hurting other people, you're going to need to be replaced by people that don't break the law. Like,
Right, right.
you're kind of fulfilling your own thing here. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, you're not getting replaced with people of different races or ethnicities. You're getting replaced with people who aren't quite as big an asshole as you
yeah,
are. That's
yeah,
what it is.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, because we can't have you outside,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
doing these things, because you're hurting people.
right.
And so it's going to be harder for you to go places. I don't know.
That, yeah, I hope. I sometimes I think, there's a joke. I don't mean joke, but like there's a question. If you could be born in any era, which would you rather be born in? And or like which, if you got a time machine that only went to the past, where would you go in the past? And it's funny because that is a question that, like, only men can actually answer, like nobody. And once you realize that, it kind of changes things. But
Yeah.
I'm really kind of annoyed. I'm very glad that I am not a teenager right now. I think this is a tough time to be a teenager. But
Yeah.
one of the most frustrating things for me is I feel like there's so much potential for things to get interesting for humans in a good way that is just not, like, at the best, it's not going to come to fruition in my lifetime.
Hmm.
And I just kind of wish, maybe, I'm glad I wasn't born today, because this is kind of a bad time to get born into the world. But if I could be born, I don't know, in another 30 years, I feel like maybe we would have gotten through this particular patch as a
Yeah.
species.
Yeah.
But I don't.
I'm torn, because, like, being, like, watching all of this happening right now
Mhm.
is many times, in many ways, scary
Oh
and
yeah,
stressful.
oh, for
And then you
sure.
have to, like, I have to go and put my kids to bed, and I have
Oh
to
right,
pretend
yeah.
like, that it's not happening, And my son, like, look, and we may have talked about this before, but, like, I'm pretty sure I have some form of generalized anxiety that
Mm-hmm.
I've just never seeked. So what's the
Saw
seek?
it, saw it.
There it is. Uh, I was gonna say soak, and I'm like, that should be a word. Sookin.
He's soaking.
uh, that I've just never sought help for, and
Mhm.
because for the most part I'm able to kind of handle it and whatever. But and the thing that sucks is I see parts of that in my son. Like, he
Yeah.
gets worried about things, and there are things that we know we can't tell him right now. And I hate that because I don't want him to also be just oblivious,
Sure.
But at the same time, I just want to make sure we work it in the right way. And the only way I can do that is by going, when I was his age and worried about a lot of things, how would I have wanted to hear about this stuff? And what was my point? The whole thing is like, as much as I hate that part of it, as a person who likes history and enjoys or just was fascinated by things in history, like in a weird way, it's like, it's just crazy in a fascinating way to watch all this stuff go down, because you're like, this is something that nobody for the last 50 years, anyone who died before Trump became president, just had no idea. Like maybe when you were born, it was like toward the end of the beginning of World War II, but you were like tiny, you didn't know what was going on. So for that particular period of time, like, you have your Vietnams and Korean War and the Cold War and things like that, but like that looks quaint these days.
Oh yeah.
Like almost timid by comparison.
Yeah, trying to explain. See, I don't think like if you transported somebody from 1890, if you just reached back in history and plucked out a 35-year-old man from 1890 and plopped him in the middle of 2022.
I feel like the first thing they would say is like, can everyone just quiet down?
Just everybody please be quiet.
And everything around just literally quiet the fuck down. Like this car and whatever the hell that is, and this massive brightly colored screen in Times Square, like, can everyone just shut the fuck up?
Yeah, like what do you do? Let's say it's your job. Let's say you get picked. He shows up and he just appears in your kitchen, sitting at your dining room table, and it's your job to like acquaint him with society today. Like, where do you take him? Where do you?
I'd be like, bro. First thing, you got to try these chocolate croissants from Trader Joe's.
Hell yeah!
Hey, I'm not kidding you. This is a legit thing. Have you tried the chocolate croissants from Trader Joe's?
I have not had those. Okay. No.
I don't know what kind of Nobel Prize deserving scientist chef came up with this, but I'm telling you, they are the best croissants I have ever had in my life. And I've been to Paris.
Damn.
I've been to and they work every time. And the one saving grace of these chocolate croissants is that you cannot just take them in a box and put them in the oven and cook them. You got to leave them out overnight.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I'm so glad that you do, because if I could just make these in 20 minutes, I'd be in some serious trouble. But I'm telling you, Trader Joe's chocolate croissants.
Yeah, okay.
They look like tiny little rectangles, and you leave them out, and when you come back the next day, they are huge.
Puffed up.
And then you put them in the oven, and they come out perfect every time.
There's one Trader Joe's here in Orlando now. It's still kind of new. Actually, that's not true. It's like 3 years old now, but still, it's one of these shopping centers that has all the trendy places in it, and there's literally one entrance and exit to it. So it's a nightmare getting in and out. Yeah. So I can promise you that I will not become a regular consumer of these Trader Joe's croissants, but I think you've convinced me to take one more trip out there. I haven't been there in a while.
It's worth the one hassle.
The one time.
But I think honestly, I wonder if that's like in the Trader Joe's like contract.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so many, even out here, there's like the Trader Joe's in LA that's in Los Feliz, right?
Oh yeah.
It's this tiny little U-shaped parking lot.
Yeah.
Everyone backs up on the street to get in, and there's only one way up and around, and you cannot back up. You
have to do the circuit.
Turn around, and if the parking lot's full, it's that like mental calculus of like, is that person leaving? Am I gonna follow them? Are they going to get in a car over that side or on this side? Have I already passed them? Am I too late? There's 20 cars beeping behind me, and everyone's pissed.
It reminds me of every day when I was a college student, going and like following people walking around to see whether they were going to pull out of a parking space, right? Yeah. Just like, are you leaving? And then much later in my life, I realized how fucking creepy that was, you know?
Yeah, I've heard that. Out of the way. I think social norms, you get it out of the way ahead of time. You see them walking out, like, hey, Are you leaving right
Are you
now?
leaving?
Yeah, seems like you're leaving right now.
It looks like you might be leaving.
Yeah. You just established that. It's just that quick, like,
Yeah.
hey, you
Hey,
over
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Yeah, cool,
Or
cool,
you
cool.
try to do it like it's hot outside and or raining or whatever, and you're like trying to signal. You know,
Yeah,
are you doing the little yeah?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh shit. Okay, well that seems like a good. I'm gonna. I hate. Unfortunately, I told you I have a deadline
yeah,
today.
yeah. No, you
Otherwise,
got
I
it.
would be thrilled to keep talking about all the bummer stuff going on. But I think Trader Joe's chocolate croissants are a good stopping point for that. Let's jump over.
Yes,
If I remember correctly, sir, we are going to talk. We are going to rewatch Jacob's Ladder,
yes,
1990.
yeah.
Awesome.
Is
I'm
it
looking forward to
90?
this.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
God, I
32
remember.
years old.
I do
Jesus.
remember when it came out in theaters. I was not old enough to go and see it in theaters.
Yeah.
Uh, I would have been 13. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I just turned. Yeah, so this was I was 1990 was the year I moved from Germany to Belgium.
Oh,
So
wow.
in a there was a brief moment where we came back to the States and hung out for I don't remember how long. In my head it was like a month, but that might not be right. It might have been a week or something, but we hung out here and I remember going to a mall for what felt like the first time in my life because I'd been in Germany and malls weren't really a big thing.
Yeah,
So I went to the mall in Pensacola, Florida, and there was a movie theater, but I don't think we saw Jacob's Ladder.
yeah,
I don't remember what it was. I'll have to dig that up because we did go see a movie.
yeah.
I used to have Hawaiian shirts. I used to really like Hawaiian shirts for some reason.
Well, I think that's probably like you see that a lot in Florida, don't you?
I don't see them much anymore. It sucks because the fucking again, I don't want to go on that. The Psycho Boogaloo Boys have co-opted Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah,
Um, so I guess it's not a good time for me to buy one. In a couple years, maybe I'll go back and buy some more
yeah,
Hawaiian shirts.
yeah.
But yeah, Jacob's Ladder, 1990. So I'm assuming you did not see this for the first time in the theater then.
I'm sure it was a VHS,
Hmm.
either rental or like, yeah, watched it with some friends. It's something I
Hmm.
can't actually remember
The first time.
the
I
first
mean,
time. I feel like, yeah,
not
uh,
surprising. I mean,
yeah. And I probably haven't seen it. I have the Blu-ray just because
oh yeah,
one day I found it somewhere. This might have been even back when like Best Buy was a bigger thing,
yeah.
and found it for like $8 or something. Was like, yeah, of course. It's probably prime. I feel like it's prime for one of those like, you know, uh,
Revivals.
yeah, like Shout Factory
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Second Sight, like sort of yeah, go back and
Taking
release like a
another look.
proper remaster transfer thing. Uh, but yeah, no, so what I do remember,
Hmm.
is that like just how I cannot think of another movie that came out before that had this sort of aesthetic, that like
Hmm.
dream logic, nightmare dream logic
Yeah.
thing. Just even the imagery when he goes into that, I think it's like a mental ward, when you see the lady in the gown like walking across the ceiling,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I that became such a like iconic cinematic thing
Hmm.
that I feel like has been since then influenced so many other movies, like that
Oh, for sure.
style of things.
Yeah.
I remember just the graphic imagery of like I think he gets flashes of like in the hospital, the nurses that have like suddenly their faces don't have eyes, or like when
Right,
sleep
right, right.
collapse over their eyes, and one of them bends over and her pillbox hat, or the nurse sort of hat
Yeah.
falls off, and there's like
And there's
these
this.
weird growths, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
all
I
that
th-
kind of stuff.
this was I don't know if it was the first one, but this was definitely the first movie I ever saw that did that like undercrank thing where the face would be twitching and then you
Yeah,
play it back and it's all fast and stuff and uh, that's one of those things where it got co-opted by it became a very lazy trick for people just trying to throw a creepy mood out, you know.
right.
um, but of course I don't think anybody. I don't know. I don't remember the last time I saw it and thought, okay, well, that was necessary. This was good for creating it here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
but Jacob's Ladder was, in my mind, at least, the progenitor of that
Yeah,
tactic.
I can't think of another film before
Yeah.
that one that had that sort of style to it. And it's funny because I don't do you hear much about Jacob's Ladder? Because I feel like I don't.
I don't, and
We
it's
should.
we should. I because I have nothing but positive. Jacob's Ladder exists in this strange space because it's Adrian Lyne, the director, is known for the steamy erotic thriller,
Mhm.
right? Like he just directed one. I didn't realize that. I was looking at his IMDb before we started talking, and I didn't realize that Deep Water was his from this year.
Oh
Um,
wow. Okay.
and then the last movie he directed before that was Unfaithful with Diane. Oh my God, Diane, not Diane Keaton. What's her name?
And Lane.
Diane Lane. Yeah, Diane
Yeah.
Lane.
Okay.
And then before that it was he did oh God, he did a Lolita, which
No.
quick side note for anybody, I plug this as much as I can. There's a woman named Jamie Loftis who has a limited podcast series called the Lolita Podcast. I think fucking everybody should listen to it. It's incredible. Just side note. But then he did Fatal Attraction, 9.5 Weeks, Flashdance, and somewhere in the middle of all this, Indecent Proposal, somewhere in the middle of all this, he did Jacob's Ladder, which
Wow.
is like it's got that sort of weird steaminess and sexual tension of his other movies, but it's also got this otherworldliness that
Yeah.
I just don't think he's done in any of his other movies there. So like, yeah, it feels like this movie should be talked about a lot more than I'm hearing about it. Maybe it's
Right.
been, maybe there's communities of smarter film nerds than me who have been talking about it all along, and
Maybe. Yeah.
they,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
but
it's one of those things where like yeah, it's been so long since even I've seen it.
mhm.
And it's just that sort of thing where you just for some reason, like I'm actually super psyched to go back
Yeah,
and watch it because I feel like it's one of those like, yeah, like this is, for so many of the movies, like we talk about the ones that are kind of maybe it's just because of the fact that it doesn't quite fit into sort of
yeah,
like the retro style that sort of the trend of retro style that's happening right now, where we're sort of
mhm,
really looking at John Carpenter and we're really looking at Toby Hooper and things like that these days,
yeah.
and that one kind of is not in that same
Sure. Yeah,
world.
this seems like it would have been a weird egg at the time even.
Yeah.
Like this is a movie that might have, you know, more in common. Like you got Adrian Lyne directing, Tim Robbins, Elizabeth Pena. The average Cineplex going public probably sees all those names and goes, "Oh, cool, this is the Fatal Attraction guy. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Let's go check this out." And then they go in and they see that fucking dance floor scene with Elizabeth Pena,
Oh yeah.
and then they walk out going, "What the hell was that?"
Yeah.
And but then this wasn't a movie that would have attracted, I think, the horror fans at the time for sure, because there's nothing outwardly about it that says, "Hey, this is otherworldly stuff. Come check it out."
Yeah. I feel like that, and it kind of sits in this like transition phase. I feel like 90 is like you're coming out of the 80s and
Hmm.
what that all entails in terms of horror films, and you're going into because like when was the first I Know What You Did Last Summer?
Oh, that had to be. Geez, what was that? I don't remember off the top of my head. I
That
know
was
what.
I feel like that happened in high school, so it had to.
97. Yeah, 97.
Oh no, so it wasn't. It was
So it's
after
just.
high school. So yeah, so there is that period of like 90 to that point
Hmm.
where like Scream and all the like yeah all those films that kind of came out those late 90s like slashers that were coming out that were like
Yeah.
basically just studio polish like
Yeah, yeah,
slashers
yeah.
uh, but so I'd actually be curious. I'm trying to think of like what other movies were horror films were around between 90 and 95, which I should probably know because well, actually, I probably
That's
shouldn't. It was like when I was in high school, and I feel like I didn't really come into like I was still catching up with like Halloween and Friday the
yeah, yeah.
13th. Like I don't think and I don't think I was going to a lot of like R-rated films yet
Hmm.
in the theaters.
I was very much a latecomer to horror.
Mhm.
I had a lot of weird reactions. Like when I was very young, we watched Thriller, for instance. The
Yeah.
Michael Jackson. I have to clarify because Vinegar Syndrome just put out a really impressive release of Thriller, aka They Call Her One Eye, and
Okay.
so I don't know. That's not. Anyway, we
Oh,
watched.
but that's a different movie. You're talking
That's a
about
different movie.
the thing. Okay.
I'm talking about, yeah, just in case anybody got confused, thinking it was an obscure Swedish movie I was talking about, and not the world famous Michael Jackson video.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about, is the Michael Jackson. But there's
Yeah.
it didn't bother me too much until there's this one scene where they do a close up on one of the zombies, and he opens his mouth and blood runs out of his mouth.
Mhm.
When I was a kid, that shot fucked me up. It just
Really?
really messed me up. And I used to, like, when I never wanted to be the coward who left the room when the video came on, but when it came on, when it got to the cemetery part, I would just kind of like find excuses to be looking elsewhere
Yeah. No,
until I was certain that was over, you know?
I was the same way. And so now you're unlocking memories for me now. And I'm thinking, so there were like these, my friends, we would get together and we watch like, so we ended up watching some horror films. And I'm trying to think, this would probably be high school. So I do remember the remake of The Blob with Kevin Dillon, right?
Was that
Matt Dillon.
Matt Dillon.
Yeah. And I do remember like some of these movies, and so this was probably the same time frame, like when all the full moon releasing stuff was happening, right? Or was that late 80s?
So I didn't even know what full moon was until like the last 2 years, honestly.
Okay.
By the way, you're right. It was Kevin Dillon. I corrected you wrong. It was Kevin Dillon.
Worries. Yeah, but so like I do remember like watching the Blob remake, and just like as things are getting intense, and all of a sudden me and my friends are like, let's get some snacks. Let's go get some snacks. I'm hungry. And then one of the other friends who just was not realizing what's going on be like, oh, I'll pause it. We can watch it when we get back. Don't pause it. Just don't pause it. We're gonna go get snacks. And if you want to come, that's cool.
That's funny. Okay, so let me get. I may regret divulging this. Maybe I'll cut this out later. But do you know what one scene I think of any movie that fucked me up more than any other scene, just an individual scene, was in, which was the Superman with Richard Pryor? That was the third one, right?
The third one. And I wonder if it's the same as me, because there is one scene that fucked me up too.
So I may have it wrong in my memory because I haven't watched this movie in over 30 years.
Yeah.
But there's a woman who gets like yanked into a big machine.
Yep.
And then there's
the wires.
The wires come down, and then there's
wrap around her.
There's like pink goo that comes up somewhere. And that.
Oh yeah, no, I was terrified about that.
It messed me up so bad. It's been over 30 years. I still haven't rewatched that movie because this scene just kind of like upsets me.
Yeah, no, I remember that was super scary. That I did that. I mean, talk about Jesus Christ, like watching that, like it's a Superman movie, you know?
Yeah, it's Superman. We don't come here for this horror, right?
Nowadays, I guess in a Zack Snyder verse, it probably actually fit better. But like, yeah, you got fucking Richard Pryor. This guy's like a comedian, and you got like, Christopher Reeves is like the good old, like he's as wholesome as a loaf of bread. Like, why are we getting like body horror, computer, cyberpunk shit going on for like 10 minutes?
The only, like, there's no other movie that I remember doing something like that to me. There was a TV show, and this is another one where, like, you made me think about it because, yeah, that was a Superman movie with Richard Pryor. Like, we shouldn't have expected it to be that messed up.
Yeah.
There was a 2-part episode of Punky Brewster where Punky goes down into a cave. And I will stipulate before getting into this that it is probably not an episode that holds up to scrutiny because of its depiction of Native Americans. Because there's like a Native American evil that lives inside this cave, and it does awful things to all her friends. Like one of them, it turns into a skeleton with her head, with the girl's head on top of the skeleton, and dances around. And one of them, I just remember one of them got like teleported into a rock where it was just their face poking out of a rock with these big fangs in their mouth. And it was so fucked up, and I was very happy. You know, most of the time I see something like I watch the Thriller video now, and I'm like, Jesus, what was wrong with me, right?
Oh, but as a kid, I mean, look, you're. Oh, and I was going to mention the thing that messed me up on the Thriller video
Oh yeah,
was actually the end.
oh yeah, oh the where
When
he turns around.
I was led to believe this was all over and done with, and now all of a sudden, this guy turns around with his like
And that
crazy like
laugh.
snake eyes and the
Yeah.
laugh. And I think that was the part that scared me the most, is the idea. And I look back on times when I was really scared about things in movies, and it's always that idea that it's like, it's not over.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want it to be over, you know?
You just wanted to. That's such a. It kills me to say this because I will. You know, we don't have to get into it. John Landis is kind of a piece of shit, and his son may be the worst human outside of DC alive. But anyway, that was such a great little piece of filmmaking because he leaves you with something, right? That's you know, just that one shot at the end is enough to just it lingers in your brain more than any of the zombies do or whatever. You know?
Yeah. And so circling it to Jacob's Ladder.
Oh yeah, back to Jay. Yeah, yeah.
So talking about so obviously the whole story is couched, from my memory, it's couched in the idea that this is all post-traumatic stress from his experience in Vietnam, right? And that it's getting worse, and that it's classic thriller trope though. What you're seeing is what you're seeing is not real, and it's just a figment of your imagination, and you know, but it keeps getting more and more real for him. And if you have to go, let me know. But,
No. I just keep glancing. I'm reminding myself of all the names in the movie.
Yeah. And that
Jason
was
Alexander was in this.
Oh wow. Okay. And so it gets so much worse that he can't deny, or he can't ignore what's happening, and then it affects his life, and then people think he's crazy. But then ultimately what I remember it was is that at the very end, because the movie starts with the traumatic memory for him is this encounter he has with a Vietnamese soldier, and you know, in that memory in the beginning, they get into a hand-to-hand combat situation, and it's very brutal, and it's very like terrifying, and that affects him for the time he's back stateside. But then at the end, the whole thing culminates in the idea that he never left. This is still him in this fight, and he lost the fight, and he essentially was killed by that soldier. And this is what his brain was doing to compensate to ignore this fact.
Yeah.
And, which is very terrifying. You know?
Yeah.
It's also probably one of the few examples of, oh, hey, this whole movie was just a dream that I'm actually kind of okay with.
Yeah. So I was gonna mention the first time I watched this movie. So I wasn't always a very good movie watcher. Like I wasn't. There was a very long period of time where, you know, the idea of a movie being fun or being creative or making me see things I'd never seen before wasn't enough for me. And the very first time I watched this movie, I was at the end of it. I was like, well, that's cheap. That's stupid. What a waste of my time. I'm so mad now.
Yeah.
By the second time I watched this movie, years later, I had rolled around to sort of kind of understanding, you know, that you don't have to have a story that like holds together under the rules of literal reality in order for it to have value.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember not being so mad about the ending the second time around, you know. And it's not like it's a new story. I remember reading when I first read about the movie, in the reviews I read about it, you know, they would mention this short story by Ambrose Bierce called An Occurrence at Owl Creek, right?
Yep. I was just thinking, about that.
And it's the same thing. It's about a guy who's about to be hanged, and he escapes, and he goes running away, and you know, it's a short story, but he escapes, and he's like, he gets kind of far away, and he's like hanging out in the woods or something, and then all of a sudden the last line is, you know, he was hanged on this day at this time and died, whatever. And like the whole story hadn't happened. It was just what's going on in his head.
Maybe it's more of an influence on the film than real, because I'm trying to remember the short story because I've read it several times, and I think the reality does start to bleed in where I think like he keeps complaining about how, oh, I remember now, he actually does get hanged, but the rope breaks.
Oh, right. Okay.
Falls off the bridge into the river, and that's what
That's how
allows
he gets
him
away.
to get away. But then when he takes the noose off, there's like obviously like a bruise and a red mark, and it keeps getting worse as the story goes along. And at one point, like he can't breathe, and his neck is super swollen from the injuries, and he's worried he's going to suffocate because of the injuries. And then it kicks you back to he's still actually being
still
hung.
there.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, I mean, that template as a template it does follow Jacob's Ladder pretty well, or Jacob's Ladder follows that pretty well.
Yeah. This is a super long shot, but I just watched a movie the other day on Tubi because I like the poster for it, called Vicious Lips, directed by Albert Pune. Did you ever see that?
No.
Okay, I need somebody to watch this movie because I need to talk about it with somebody, because it's kind of the inverse of what we're talking about right now, where a group it's trying to describe the aesthetic of this movie is basically impossible. It's like an all-girl glam rock band in a far future sci-fi neon dystopia, and it's a ton of fun. But this group, they get on a spaceship and they're trying to fly to the show, and it crashes on a desert planet, and there's one woman in the group who is like, she gets chased by monsters and ends up leaving the ship and winds up in this little shanty town full of radioactive zombies, and they close in on her and they're about to murder her, and then suddenly she's at the show and all the other band members are like, hurry up, get on stage, it's time to go. And then she goes up on stage and sings, and that's the end of the movie. And sorry for the giant spoiler.
No, is it like a metaphor for stage fright?
I don't know. I almost want to watch it again. There was a little bit of a slow part in it, but otherwise, when they first get to the desert, for anybody interested, it gets a little bit slow. But the movie is so off the wall, and it's gorgeous. Albert Pune is nuts. Like, the guy, he did, Cyborg, of course, is the big one. But he also did this movie called Mean Guns with Ice-T and Christopher Lambert, which I recommend for anybody who has 2 hours to kill.
Yeah, I feel like I must have seen. I feel like there's so many movies I feel like I watched in the 90s of like between like USA, Showtime, like all these films. Like, I'm actually fascinated to go back and watch some of these. Like, I recently went back and saw the original Nemesis.
Oh, right. That's Albert Pune. Yeah. Well,
it is. Yeah. So, and that movie was totally an influence on The Matrix. I mean,
for sure.
Color-wise, even some of the costumes are the same.
The long jackets and the sunglasses. Yeah,
and just that sort of like crazy, like bullet-riddled gunfights, like, casings flying everywhere. Like, totally was like, and I was just always fascinated. I want to go back and watch. Like, it's been so long since I've seen like Trancers series or the Screamers, or like all these like 90s sort of like sci-fi or horror stuff. Like, like the Full Moon stuff.
Do you know? Okay, so do you know the term wandom? It's I discovered this on TV Tropes one day. It's a loose portmanteau for wannabe random, right?
Okay.
It's like whenever you're listening to somebody tell a story, and then you can tell they kind of want to go off the wall, so they say something usually about a ninja showing up or something like that, and it's like, yeah, okay, dude, you said something random, but it's not really worthwhile at all, right? It's not, you haven't contributed to the story in any way. I don't know. I think about a movie like, and I don't want to get too far away from Jacob's Ladder. We can come back to that in just a second. But I'm thinking of a movie like, or even Jacob's Ladder, right? What's the difference between a mind fuck and, I don't know, a cheap trick, right? And I don't know if this is a question that can be answered, but I'm curious about your thoughts.
I guess I guess just by the definition, like the cheap trick is cheap, right? So it wasn't earned in some way, or feels like too easy or even just counter to
Yeah.
what the logic would dictate.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a mind fuck, like I guess I'm like you're thinking about the ending of Jacob's
Yeah.
Ladder,
Yeah.
right?
I'm thinking.
Versus like what would be a cheap trick
So
example for
okay.
you?
So this might be a contentious claim. Because there was a long period of my life where I really loved this movie, and I think a lot of people did. But every time I go back and rewatch it, it just gets worse for me.
Okay.
So I think of Jacob's Ladder as being a mindfuck, and then I think of Usual Suspects as being a cheap trick. You know,
Okay.
and I want to know why. Like they're both movies where ostensibly nothing you see actually happens, right?
Right.
Um,
That's a
so
good point. No, it is a good point because I can totally see a difference in those things. And I feel like maybe the Usual Suspects, and like I'm a huge Christopher McQuarrie, fan.
right? Yeah.
And I really feel like obviously that movie was, it was ultimately it was his concept from the script.
Yeah.
And so, but it's almost like it exists purely for that ending.
Right.
Right. Like the whole movie is in service. I mean, very literally, the whole movie is in service to that ending, which in many ways, people like when you talk about screenwriting or things like that, they're like, well, yeah, of course, it has to be, right? But I guess it's just so overtly tied to that ending that like, whereas like Jacob's Ladder, the idea of
there's a journey. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay. But the idea of bookending with the stuff that happened in Vietnam, that middle part, yes, it's in service to what's actually going on, but it has its own function. Like it is also a story about post-traumatic stress, and it's a story about reintegrating into society once you've been in war and how that happens, born on the 4th of July type stuff. Whereas like Usual Suspects, the first 9/10 of the movie is just about
things happening,
the story of what's happening that's being made up on the spot and about objects in the room. Like there's nothing, and yes, it's a crime story, and I might be missing stuff because I haven't seen it even in a long time.
Right.
But like, it's like a story about this Kaiser Soze person who everyone else knows and no one has seen, but like, and obviously the guy telling it is obvious. We find out is Kaiser's, but like none of it, like it's so like wrapped in around. It's all wrapped in around itself.
Yeah. It's like it's not saying anything about anything else. Whereas like the story that Verbal Kint tells in The Usual Suspects is a clever crime story, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just something he's coming up with on the spot. Whereas the story that we witness throughout, and again, I haven't watched Jacob's Ladder in a long time, but I'm assuming the story that we witness throughout Jacob's Ladder is telling you about the mind of a person who's been through this, through this trauma. So
and what and he's trying to. It is very much, I think, until things get super crazy and weird. It is very much about like trying to shake off what he saw when he was abroad.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you a well? I guess the word gamer means it covers a whole lot of ground.
I have played video. It's been a while because I think with kids, it just got a lot harder. And also partly because I had a PS3 was the last one that I owned, and it crapped out on me. And that was right around the time that like we were, I think, I can't remember. I think it was in between my son and before my daughter was born. And it was just like, oh yeah, I'll get the new one when it comes out. And I just never did.
Been a couple, yeah.
But it's a bummer. In ways, it's a bummer. Other ways, it's actually great because there's this like mental short list of games that I want to go back and play.
Yeah.
Someday when I actually do get a new console, I'm like, yeah, those games are gonna be like cheap as dirt.
right, for sure. Yeah.
I still want to play that new Fallout. Well, now it's not new, but Fallout 4 was one that I always wanted to play. And the second Last of Us, the second one.
I still haven't played Fallout 3. I loved Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 I played a lot of time in. But I had an Xbox 360 and Jen bought me Fallout 3 like 20 years ago and not literally, but you know,
Yeah.
I never got around to playing it. In the last year my Xbox 360 blew up. The only thing I ever played on it was Doom and Wolfenstein 3D, you know, from
Nice.
1992.
Yeah.
But I just recently restarted playing a game, Hotline Miami,
Okay.
and there's something to be said that young me I don't think would have appreciated. And I think this is another thing that Jacob's Ladder has in spades that other movies that I consider cheap tricks do not have. And that's the aesthetics of the experience. Because
Mhm.
I'm playing through Hotline Miami right now. And when you're playing the game, I don't know if you've ever played it. It's fucking, for me, an old man, it's hard as shit. You basically have to be ambidextrous to play this game. But besides that, it's a gorgeous game. It's done up like pixel art, and it's done in that faux '80s aesthetic
Yeah.
that never actually existed until the 2020s, right, or
Yeah.
2010s.
Yeah.
Great soundtrack, super violent, and it's about a guy who's losing his mind as you go through the story, and things start getting weird and creepy, and like dead heads start talking to him, and things start flashing into different things, and while I'm playing it, I'm thinking, man, this is super creepy and gorgeous, and it's really engaging. And then because I want to make sure I get all the hidden stuff, I'm now pulling up a guide these days because I'm old and I cheat. So I pulled up a guide to see where are the hidden tiles, where are the hidden whatevers. And when you read in words the story that actually happens in the game, it just sounds kind of dumb. But while you're in the game, the experience of it, the actual behind the scenes plot of game, because there's a lot that's being revealed as time goes by.
Yeah.
It gets kind of dripped out in these little dollops as you go through the game, and when you get it that way in the look and feel of the game itself, it's super engaging. But when you read it as a chronological list of events, there's nothing there. It's terrible to do it that way because that's not how it's designed. It's not what it's
Right.
designed for, right?
Yeah. It's almost like reading a treatment
Right.
versus watching
Just
the
watching the movie.
right?
No,
Yeah.
you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And I think that young me would never have gotten into this game because young me would have looked at the story and said, "Oh, that's dumb."
Yeah.
Right? But now at this you know, now that I'm in middle age, I can look at this and say, "Dude, this is gorgeous and fun and hard, and it doesn't matter if the textual summary of the plot matters. Like it doesn't. Who cares? You know, it's fun to play, and I feel sort of freed from some dogma that I had attached to myself earlier in
Previous. Yeah.
life. Yeah.
I do want to add. So I actually have played some video games.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's like, it's funny because I don't even, they don't come front to mind because I just don't like, I've played quite a bit of like games like on my iPad.
Oh,
And I
okay.
try to find these ones that are like interesting enough. And I find that I generally tend towards something that has no multiplayer option. I don't want to deal with other.
Right. Seriously. Ugh.
Even Words with Friends, too much.
Yeah. Nope.
I don't want it.
Yeah.
But there was this cool 80s inspired isometric game, puzzle escape room style game.
Okay. I loved those.
Get one that's called Get Access.
Get Access. Okay.
I think the access is AC 355.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's really cool because there's like, it's very 80s inspired, and like it's like each room has its puzzles to solve, but like randomly there's all these 80s like iconography in there.
Yeah.
Like you go into a garage, there's a DeLorean in there, stuff like that. That one was pretty cool. But if you haven't played this, and you get a chance to play Kentucky Route Zero.
Okay. That sounds familiar.
One of the most like mind blowing games, because it's more about an experience.
Yeah.
Rather than even the gameplay, or you know, and the story. It's like it's been around for a while. and I was very late to the party on it, and it was released, I guess, in chapters as
Okay.
an indie game,
Yeah,
and now
yeah.
you just buy the whole thing.
I'll think I want to see that.
And the soundtrack is really cool. Like it's got this great like synth wave thing, but then they also, it's this mix of like 80s synth wave, but then um like folkways, like old Americana music.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
No, that
blended.
sounds great. Yeah. So Kentucky Route Zero and Get Access. All right. Yeah, I'm putting those. Those are. I mean, you're looking at me right now, so you know that I'm not literally putting them on a list, but I'm putting them on a list.
Cool. Cool. Yeah.
I get. Let's go. Yeah. I have so much more. I don't think people understand. I don't think these game makers understand. I'm in a position now in my life where I am ready to pay for a game with money that doesn't demand all my time, right?
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
think when I was younger, I would get into these games where, first of all, I'd make my parents buy them, or like it was a birthday gift or something like that.
Yeah.
And I wanted something that I could like I could play Quake, and you could play Quake for days and days and days and days on end. Now I don't want to do that. I'm mad because Duolingo is using up too much of my time. I will pay for a game that I can play at my leisure, where I can jump in and jump out. Are you listening, game makers?
I
Yeah,
liked, I played, I think when Unreal came out,
yeah.
I played that just because where I was working at the time, it was like there was a LAN
Hmm.
network,
Yeah,
and everyone at the end of the workday would stay for an extra hour, and like we'd all play.
yeah.
And that was great just
Oh, that
because
sounds fun.
I could see the people that I was playing against. Like it was
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
like over
yeah.
there and over there and behind me. And I remember that being really fun, because it was with people you knew. The
Right.
moment it made the jump into like, oh, this random,
I'll go
like,
on this random server and play against a bunch of
yeah,
strangers. Yeah.
yeah. And then half the strangers have either like cheats or like are
Hmm.
so good at it that they're like playing for like sponsored EA sports competition. I'm just here to,
I just want to have fun, man. Is that too much
yeah,
to ask when I'm playing a game? Like
yeah,
literally a game? Can I just have
yeah,
some fun?
yeah, exactly. Like, and there are games that are like, that have a multiplayer aspect to it. And I'm like, as long as it has a story,
Hmm.
that's what I care about. I don't care about that stuff. I just want to play the story and then be done with the story and then move on,
Hmm.
you know?
There was a game I played. So there's this one game I played that was online, and anybody who's played is going to be able to figure out. But I'm actually not going to name it because it turns out the leadership uh, sucks. Like
Yeah.
one of the creators of it like raped a woman, and
So,
it's so I'm not going to plug the game itself. But I played this game, and um, it was a fun game to play. It was a tongue in cheek kind of RPG that you would play online, and I guess for whatever reason, you only had so much playtime every day. I guess that was like a good thing. You could find things in game to make it last longer, but really you had this finite window of time that you could play the game every day. And I thought, okay, that's fine. I can deal with that. But because it was an online game, uh, they would do these things where, like, if you happened to be playing the game today, there's a special item that dropped in this one area, and
mm,
the people who go get it are going to have that item, and then literally no one else will ever have a chance at it. And
okay.
so it became one of those chores where it was like, okay, well, I have to go check the message boards today to see where the new stuff is dropping, and then I have to go get the new stuff today. And I realized this isn't fun. you know,
Yeah.
like it's cool that you keep adding new functionality every fucking day, but I like a finished game too.
Yeah. That's what I didn't like about stuff like World of Warcraft,
Hmm.
or I don't know if Fortnite is the
The
same.
same thing. Yeah, I haven't even played that one.
But it's that idea that like with World of Warcraft, like you play it and you've got to like advance in the levels or
Hmm.
whatever, you do tasks and quests and stuff. That's all fine. But the
Hmm.
problem is that like when you shut down and you leave, the
It's still
game
going
keeps
on.
going on without you. And
That
and
is
that
such a
period that thing in your head where you're like so and so, and these people that I know, they're all still playing and they're getting,
Right.
and I'm falling behind because I'm not here. I mean, it's like basically like social media where it felt
Hmm.
like you needed to be on all the time, and if you weren't on all the time, you were falling behind, and that was the part that I was not cool with.
Yeah, that's not a game. That's a job.
Yeah.
Like, no, I want.
Well, that's my, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the post, but like, in regards to Facebook, like you realize that we are
Yeah,
all unpaid employees of Facebook, right?
absolutely. I like uh, the way I heard it, and I think you got a great, that's something I find myself kind of agonizing. Like I want to share this thing that happened to me today, and then I spend 6 hours that day in the back of my head just kind of rolling around. What's the best way to post about it? What's the best way to say something? How do I get this down to a
Yeah.
nice, pithy sentence? And then I think, Jesus, Stephen, what are you doing? You're giving Facebook all these hours that you just spent trying to make sure that you could compose the perfect Facebook post. Who gives a shit? If the people seeing it are your friends, they just want to know what happened with you today. And
Yeah.
if they're not your friends, who gives a shit, right?
Yeah. No,
But
I fall into the same problem too.
yeah.
It's that idea like you want to make sure. I mean, for me too, is like I just don't want to say things. I don't want to say something that might, obviously also you do that mental pass of like,
Mhm.
I want to make sure I'm not being insensitive to someone or
Right,
like,
right, right, right.
I think you should do. But then there's that idea. Then there comes like well, how do I word this in the most pithy way
The most,
possible? And you're
right,
just
right. How do I get the most
okay.
likes out? So, yeah. I
Like, but you also write and like, I write. And so I think that is more of like a natural thing that we do because that's what
Mhm.
we do when we write, right? You're trying
Yeah,
to put
yeah,
it
yeah.
in the most concise and impactful way as you can. But that being said,
Why are we giving our
it's not a
labor,
short script. It's not a
right?
feature script. It's a Facebook status update. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Do you remember when people when there were websites? Like you would go to websites like eh, God, I don't know. I could talk for many, many hours about how much I hate Facebook and what they've done to the. Do you remember I don't know if you were ever on AOL, but the
Yeah.
thing the thing about AOL was I think that Facebook is what AOL always wanted to be. They wanted you to never see the internet except through AOL.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Facebook is doing. Like they don't want you to like you don't when you want to know what's going on with I don't know the game studio that you like, you don't go to their website. You don't go over to idsoftware.com or whatever if it still exists, I don't know. But you don't go to the website. You go to Facebook and you try to
Yeah.
find their Facebook page and see what their latest blog post or their latest Facebook post was, right?
Yeah.
Sucks because
Yeah.
you used to like when I was young, I had access, we were always big tech people in my family, so I had access. I had a website. I was doing dumb shit with it at the time because I was young and didn't know what to. I'm 16 years old. What am I going to do
Yeah.
with a website when I'm 16? Oh, I made a page for my Vampire the Masquerade character, right? Like, so
That's what you. I mean, don't put so much pressure on yourself too, because like, what should you have been expected to be doing at 16, right?
right. I, but like now I feel like I do have shit to say, and if I created a website, and I run this with the festival, like I put things on the festival website, no one ever sees them. If you don't post it on Facebook and then pay Facebook to advertise it to the people who have already liked your page, no one's ever
Mm,
going to see it, right?
yeah, yeah,
Oh man. Sorry. Jesus. Okay. All right. I got my checklist here. I got to ask you a couple quick
yeah,
questions.
yeah,
So I guess we've kind of danced around it a lot. The basic plot, like the yeah, to the best of your memory, what's the plot summary of Jacob's Ladder?
yeah. So a soldier from the Vietnam War returns home
Mhm.
with PTSD. Starts to see really weird stuff,
Mhm.
uh, and it gets increasingly crazier, and like makes him question his sanity, and the people around him don't quite understand.
Mhm.
And it sort of all reaches this culmination point where you come to realize that he's still there
Right,
and
right.
not left and will never leave because he's being killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof. I guess like well, we've talked about the whole thing. I can still kind of remember that body bag zip up scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's heavy. This is gonna be a fun one. Was there
Yeah.
anything? Is there anything in the movie that you can point to? And it could just be the vibe of the movie. It could just be the whole package. But was there any specific point that you could point to and say, "I loved this. This stuck with me forever. This is
It's
what
just
I
that,
loved."
yeah, it incorporates, like, I've always have a great respect for films that manage to find a way to depict the uncanny,
Mm-hmm.
'cause that's such a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think.
And it just does that,
Yeah.
and like it showed me at the time things that you're like, you're just like, that's really messed up, like, and even more supported by the things, like, it comes from a dude that did, like, thrillers and, like, like studio, like, dance movies, and
Right. Right.
like that's an amazing thing to be able to then turn around and just, like, on a one-off,
Yeah.
like, just
Yeah.
make this, like, movie that it does have this ripple effect of inspiring so many more in the future.
I wonder whether his experience in the erotic thriller really equipped him to make this movie better in a way that literally no one else could do,
Mm,
because with the erotic thriller, you want to have, for instance, you want to have sexy stuff, but you also don't want to just make porn, right? With
right,
porn, you just put screwing on the screen and say, there you go, enjoy yourself, right?
right,
But with eroticism, you have to try to kind of draw people into so that they can feel like they're a part of what's happening.
yeah,
And I wonder whether that gave, like, doing that, having the experience doing that, being able to do that, made Adrian Lyne able to put us in the experience of this uncanniness in a way, I don't know, that a horror director might not have been able to do, might not have
yeah,
been able to do. Like a straight up horror director would have maybe just done the thing where it's up on screen and maybe it's disconcerting or something. Maybe we get to see it and go, "Oh wow, that's messed up." But
yeah,
Adrian Lyne was able to kind of draw us into it in a very, like, visceral way. I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe I'll be able to say more after I watch it again.
No, I think that's good, and I also, like, I think there's an interesting thing to be the people who come into horror or do a horror film where they
Mhm.
may never have before, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
uh, they're going to inevitably have a bit of a different perspective,
sure.
just partially because maybe they haven't watched all of the movies that we have, or they don't, or they just, it's not front of mind for them because they've been focusing on these other
Hmm.
genres to begin with. And so, like, coming into it, like, you're just going to have a different approach to
Yeah.
the visual imagery.
Yeah, I love it when somebody goes out of their wheelhouse to go and make a horror movie or something. I think just the reverse of that, and this is a subject, another one I can speak of great length to. I have a lot of friends who are avowed and dedicated horror fans who are really disappointed with, for instance, not for instance, specifically with Rob Zombie's horror output. And I think the great tragedy of Rob Zombie is that the movie world won't let him not make a horror movie. Because I've
Mhm.
read about some of his passion projects, like he wanted to do, um, I always forget the name of it. There's a notoriously uh, violent hockey team in the 70s that he's
Mm,
been wanting to do a story about, and he also wanted to do a biopic on Groucho Marx, but, like,
mm.
nobody will let him do this stuff. The studios won't finance that kind of stuff, so they just give him more money to do horror movies. And I think maybe his heart's not really in it, and nobody's getting that message, right?
Mm.
And so but yeah, I like when people, like, I don't know, can you think of any other examples where somebody made a horror, like, okay, well, Steven Spielberg,
Yeah,
the great filmmaker of the people, made Jaws, a bright movie, takes place almost entirely in the daytime in the sunlight, scary as hell,
yeah,
That's,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm
I
thinking,
guess that's the quintessential example right there.
yeah. I've always had an affinity. Like, I loved Scorsese's Shutter Island. To
Okay.
me, that was his, like, and you could argue that, like, Taxi Driver is like a horror movie, right? In some ways, I mean, it's a very gritty.
It's almost a slasher. Yeah,
Oh
almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think in terms of, like, like, Shutter Island really
Hmm.
kind of it's billed as a psychological thriller, but I think it definitely puts 2 feet firmly into the horror.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool because it's, it has it has like what you expect from a Scorsese film, but at the same time, like he was willing to go into these like horrific psychological,
Yeah.
and avenues. Trying to think of
There's
who.
The Shining,
Yeah,
of course, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
I I don't know. I feel like I'd like to see more of this. I'd like to see more movies where somebody who does not only make horror comes and tries the genre out, you know?
Yeah,
You know,
I heard for a while that Nicholas Winding Refn was doing a horror film.
oh yeah?
Well, at one point he was doing. He was supposed to be doing one about the Cecil Hotel
Oh, okay.
in LA.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if that's like still happening or what, but
Hmm.
that was one that came to mind. But he always kind of like has horrific elements in his
Yeah.
film. Like to me, like Only God Forgives is basically
Oh,
like
man.
a horror film.
It's you and me. That's right. You and I are the ones who love Only God Forgives. Yeah, I was thinking Neon Demon is
Yeah,
like
that too.
it's like it's a horror movie as filtered through a very kind of specific eye, the eye belonging to Nicholas Winding Refn. You know, like nobody else has.
It's a perfume ad as horror film,
Yes,
right?
that's good.
Yeah.
Ah, well, this is fun. I, of course, I'm very excited to rewatch Jacob's Ladder, and I own it. I hope it doesn't bother you. I'm going to be watching it on 480p on my DVD. Before we go, though, do you got anything you wanna plug? You wanna let people know about? Anything going on?
Oh man.
It put
You
you
know
on the
what? You're
spot
about
here.
to get into the debacle today.
I am about to get into the
Plug that.
debacle.
You plug that. I think that's a big thing. You're about to like launch into this for the weekend and stuff. So
Yeah, a whole
I'm
weekend.
actually excited. I want to check it out.
Oh well, uh, yeah, that'd be great. It's gonna be up all weekend. I don't know if this podcast is gonna go out before it comes up. So
Oh,
if
well,
you're
how
listening,
awesome was that debacle weekend? Dude? That
it
was
was it
great.
was
That
so
one
cool.
movie about that one thing with the guy, that was so
Dude, that
cool.
was so amazing. Yeah.
Dude, yeah.
I really I wish I could spread the word better about the debacle because the debacle is something. The festival is of course open to people all over the planet. People can submit from everywhere, but the debacle is not only open to everybody; it's watchable by everybody. You know,
Yeah.
so I would love to help to spread that word. So if you don't know what I'm talking about right now, you know what we're talking about right now. Listening to this listener or watcher, since I'm recording right now, go check out the debacle. It's a lot of fun. It's a 3-day filmmaking challenge where you get weird ass prompts, and you should join it next year. It'll be next June. Probably, if I can make it happen again.
Do you know how many feature length things you're expecting to get in?
Okay, so the longest one this time, and I think it's because, okay, long story short, I wanted to move the debacle. So last year it was basically at the same time as the festival, and that was no good for me, like splitting focus with the promotion, stuff like that, and it was no good for a lot of people involved. So I moved it to June instead of December. My point being that this year's debacle was only about 6 months after the last year's debacle. So a lot of the vets from last year were kind of tired. So my point is the longest movie we have this year is only 32 minutes.
Okay.
So we no features this time around. We did have 2 of them last year. One that broke 60 and another that broke 70.
Impressive.
So yeah, I'm blown away that these people could do this.
Yeah.
My secret shame about the debacle is that I love it and I love everything everyone makes. If I weren't running it, I don't know that I would ever sign up for it.
Every year you bring it up and I'm always like, can I do this? And then it's just like, man, I just don't know that I can break away that much time.
It is, man, it is. I have nothing but admiration for the people who manage it.
No, it's amazing. Yeah. It's a dedication. I want to have that,
There was one of the filmmakers this year, poor guy, Shane Grin. he gets this assignment on Friday, and then on Sunday night he messages me and he thinks, oh, I think I'm gonna be a little bit late. I'm really sorry. I'm almost done. And I'm like, okay, you have another day, right? And he was like, oh fuck. he thought it was
terrible,
a 40.
but awesome.
Yeah. So he had a whole other day to like redo his color and subtitles
Nice.
and things like that. So-
Nice. That's awesome.
Well, sir, it has been a pleasure talking to you as usual. I hate
Likewise.
cutting us off like this. We'll have to find recreational time to speak again.
Yeah.
I hope that you're well out there on the left coast.
Yeah. Doing what we can. Hopefully you guys are doing well as well.
We're trying. Florida's a weird bird. It's a
Yeah.
strange.
It's got to be a different sort of thing.
It is bizarre. But my parents are coming in this weekend.
Nice.
I haven't seen them since Christmas 2016, actually. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's been a little while.
Jeez.
Jesus,
Yeah. Where do they live?
Memphis. Yeah,
Okay.
they both work for FedEx, so
Okay.
that's
Nice.
Memphis is the FedEx town.